Welcome back to the App Section, the show where we talk about pop culture, music, and fashion. I'm your host, Mia, and today we are doing a deep dive on the fashion clothing brand, The Gap. So, The Gap has become a bit of like this cultural phenomenon powerhouse between the music videos with Cat's Eye. They have collaborations with Sandy Liang and now with Victoria Beckham. And they have just become such an interesting company to look at. And I think a very interesting company for other businesses to take note of. And I say that both for fashion and for other businesses for various different reasons that we will be dissecting in a minute. So I wanted to start off with like why I picked Gap for this week's episode, and it's because they have 3 collections that have been recently released. The first is obviously the Cat's Eye collection, where each of the girls designed their own hoodies, and they got to put their own personal touches on it, whether that be like their homeland. And I think it was Yoon Chae did like her own drawing design on the back of her hoodie. And they sold out within like minutes for the most part. I think the only one that didn't sell out completely fast was Laura's, unfortunately, but even now I'm pretty sure it's sold out. The Cat's Eye collection was designed with like each of the girls' heritage and style in mind, and it sold out within like minutes. I think a few of them were left over here or there for 1 or 2 of the girls, but for the most part, they sold out very, very quickly. And then they had a new collection for their Old Navy branch with Christopher John Rogers. And it's this very cool, very colorful spring collection with Kimora Lee Simmons and her daughters at the forefront of it. And then their last collection is with Victoria Beckham. And it has a very like utilitarian vibe to it. And I think each of the collections showcase different parts of Gap's strength and where they feed into different cultural phenomenon. Cat's Eye is a huge name in the game right now. For Gen Z, they are becoming a very quick household name. And so I think that collaboration, especially after the milkshake video went mega viral, I think it has over 84 million views or something like that. And that's just on YouTube alone, was a very smart move for Gap because they knew we're in this time where a lot of fashion houses are having trouble finding their audience, and especially with the younger generations who have less money to spend in a time of economic trouble. Gap has done really well at being a middle priced retailer that still manages to appeal to younger generations and get us to spend coin and dime on them. And again, they're like in between fast fashion. Like they're not Shein, but they're not like Gucci either. And so for even the fast fashion retailers are starting to find themselves in some hot water. Forever 21 ended up filing for bankruptcy for like the second time last year. And the really interesting thing about Forever 21 is like, I grew up on Forever 21. I remember going to a physical mall to go into Forever 21 and buy stuff. I remember when I was like moving to New York for the first time, getting pieces from Forever 21. And let me tell you, first of all, their quality used to be a lot better. I actually still have a shirt from high school or something that is held up completely well from Forever 21 a long time ago. But these fast fashion retailers have continued declining in quality, and they pump out stuff so fast that, you know, by the time you blink, there's a new trend or there's a new item on the shelf and everything feels rushed and sloppy, and it's too much. It's almost like going to a thrift store. And for some people, they like to dig through thrift store bins. I'm one of them. And if things aren't perfectly curated and organized and all of that. But for other people, it's overwhelming the amount of stuff that you can find on a Shein site. Shein sells ramen. Like, why are we selling food on a site for like clothes and shoes and stuff like that? And I always think it's doubly funny too. I don't think sometimes people realize how bad quality Shein is, because I'll see videos of being like, I ordered my birthday dress off of Shein, and it's supposed to be like a duplicate or a replica of like a $3,000 luxury dress, and then they get mad when it shows up and it's not that, but it's like the picture of the luxury dress printed on the fabric. Like, Shein is doing you girls so dirty, and I think people are finally starting to get tired of it. I hope people are starting to get tired of it. But Gap, while they do not, exit the fast fashion realm entirely, they are much more thoughtful and deliberate with the collections that they put forward. So like we were saying, the Cat's Eye collection was very deliberate in being targeted at Gen Z. The Victoria Beckham collection, on the other hand, I personally did not like it, but I will also sit here and say I don't think I was the target demographic because I went to go like kind of see how people were reacting to the collection. And they seemed like women maybe more in their like mid 30s or up who really liked the collection. And I love that for them. You guys can get your capris back and your jumpsuits. Y'all got it. Y'all got it. But they're very thoughtful and deliberate in targeting that demographic. Because again, like Victoria Beckham isn't someone that draws my attention or my ear the way that Cat's Eye does, but it does draw someone's attention, and it's that demographic. And then the last collection with Christopher John Rogers, again, very deliberate in having Kimora Lee Simmons and her daughters at the forefront of this. They're kind of getting new attention on them because they've had a reboot of their reality TV show, and Where the Girls Are Now. And it appeals to a number of people because, like, I'm interested in her daughters. They're very pretty. They seem very cool. But obviously, Kimora Lee Simmons is a very long-standing fashion name as well that interests people of all ages and ranges. And I kind of like got to look a little bit into what was the thought behind this collection and having them as the face of it. And with Old Navy is much more like family based. And so they said that they wanted to tap into pop culture and family, which again would make sense for having the Lee Simmons as the forefront of that collection. And I actually really liked that collection. Some of it was a little bit basic, but it was basic and elevated and very colorful. I felt like the Victoria Beckham collection was missing color, and especially for something that's supposed to be going into spring and summer, I wanted more like this other collection that had reds and pinks and blues and bright yellows and all that other kind of stuff. I did laugh to myself because in the article it said something about them being like the face of body diversity. And I was like, okay, sure. Maybe body diversity in like the 1990s heroin chic way. Not saying that they look heroin chic, but just saying like they're all very skinny. Body diversity is not a word I would use to describe them in that family. No hate on them. They're absolutely gorgeous and stunning. Just, if you wanted body diversity, I think there's a few more body types and shapes and sizes that you could have thrown into there. For the Victoria Beckham commercial, though, that was very like, it gave me very model off duty vibes in the way that was like, you have to be a negative 000 in order to wear these and to them to like look stylish and trendy to a certain extent. Like if Zendaya threw it on, I'm sure I would love it. If I threw it on, I'm sure I would hate it. And that's to each their own. Again, I'm not the target demographic for that. So whatever millennial mom is enjoying her utilitarian jumpsuit while she picks up her kids, I love that for her. But I think what makes Gap so special is that they're very good at leaning into pop culture and all these very trendy things, but without losing authenticity. And I think that's the thing that's harming a lot of brands, especially fashion brands these days, because you can put something forth, but your audience isn't dumb. We can tell if you're doing this just to like meet a quota or if you're doing this because it's genuinely something you believe in for your brand. And so Gap has been built off of diversity and showcasing a number of people. And so when they have these collaborations with, young Miko and with Cat's Eye, it doesn't feel out of place for them or like they're just doing this to appease Gen Z. It seems like a genuine, thoughtful, deliberate collaboration that makes sense for them. And I think that's why Gen Z is so drawn in and attracted to them, especially as we're coming into an age of DEI rollbacks and especially with the rise of AI. And something I keep seeing over and over and over again is as AI becomes more prevalent, the general public seems to have more want and need for things that are authentic because it's getting hard to differentiate what is authentic and what's not between the like deep fakes on TikTok. It's something that's starting to affect everyone. And it's scary because all these softwares have to do is take an image or several videos of yourself, and now it can replicate you into saying anything. Even with Donald Trump, the president of our United States, has been replicated into like Jesus Christ. And that one obviously is a more easily spottable, this is fake. But I've been got by several AI things where I was like, oh yeah, this is obviously real. There was like one that was about a homeowners association or something like that. And I thought it was real. It was not. It was not real at all. But I think brands need to take note of that, especially I've seen a lot of backlash for AI ads in general. Like McDonald's had to end up pulling an ad around Christmas time because they had tried to make an AI Grinch ad and it was so terribly received across all platforms that it got scrubbed from the internet almost immediately. Um, and that's the great thing about Gap too. They're listening to their consumers. They're not trying to be trendy in the way that it is like following almost what the masses are doing, but rather taking what their more niche specific audience is asking of them and saying that they want and yearning for, and then catering down to that. Because if they were going by the masses, they too would probably be participating in a number of like AI ads. They would probably have less diverse collections. I don't know if Young Miko would be the face, one of the faces of their like campaign at the moment, but they're not. They're like, okay, Gen Z wants authenticity. They want diversity. They want to be heard because many of us feel like our voices are not being heard across the board, despite having more tools of communication than ever. It feels a little hard to get your voice out there. Something else that I think feeds into like authentic, genuine diversity as well for them is that not everything is on a super large scale for them. So for the episode, I went into Gap's YouTube channel just to kind of see what else they had done besides the Cat's Eye and Young Miko ads. And I found like these really interesting other little things. So they did a collection with Harlem Fashion Row, which supports like younger Black designers. And they did a whole little commercial for them as well. And again, going back to why their authenticity feels so genuine is like Harlem Fashion Row, I think is something pretty well known within the fashion community. I don't know if they're as well known outside of the fashion community, but to have them like do that collaboration and help support and get an even more widespread reach for these younger Black designers, to me is huge. Because again, you're putting your money where your mouth is. You're giving these younger Black designers a platform to show their work, and their pieces are stunning. They're beautiful, and it's that kind of question of, it's like they almost feel like they should be bigger than they are, like looking at their pieces, although it's a smaller collection off of each of them. It's like, no, you should have a show at New York Fashion Week. You're good at what you do. You're better than some of the people who are at New York Fashion Week at current, but your name isn't out there for various different reasons. I mean, yes, obviously they're probably starting out, but minority designers do have a hard time coming up in today's industry. And kind of just younger designers in general, I feel like, are having a harder time coming up in today's industry because the bigger brands have just kind of slammed the doors shut. They're like, we don't want anybody new unless you're going to come and work for us. They don't want other brands. They just want to take people's like talent and apply it to their own brands instead. And because we have these large conglomerates like LVMH, like, you're playing 1v18 instead of 1v1. And to a certain extent, this isn't even something specific to like clothing brands and designers. I think this, door shutting thing is a pattern across the board. Even one of a very famous TikToker, his name is Ilias, who has been in the fashion industry for a while, who's very known for his fashion videos, has created a watch party in France for runway shows with the intent to make it more accessible to the public and to make it more of a community-based thing, because we're in a time where people are craving community. Like, people are getting a little tired of having only online connection instead of having in real life connections and conversations, and missing that human to human connection. And apparently Vogue has like done this to him twice, where they've heard about an idea of his still kind of in its incubator phase. It does seem like Le Watch Party, the name of this new company, is gaining traction. I saw they did a collaboration with a makeup company for a watch party. So like clearly they have investors and backing to a certain extent. It's not baby, but it's not super widespread either. And so while it's still in this growing phase, it seems Vogue has decided to copy him and start doing that for themselves. But now it's only for industry professionals and people within the industry, and taking those open doors that Ilias is trying to do and closing them. And I have a feeling it won't be maybe as successful as they hope it will be because they've missed the entire point of it. The entire point of it being community, accessibility, and like, connection and people wanting and being eager to learn about stuff and having easy access to learn about stuff, which is a whole other conversation about how it feels like to learn stuff is behind every paywall imaginable these days. But they took all of that and was like, no, let's make it exclusive and let's put it behind the paywall for only the like 1% of the industry, not the actual 1%. Overall, I think that Gap has done a number of very smart and thoughtful moves that I think other brands should take note of and how to tap into their various different audiences and how to engage with them. Because it has become, with social media kind of becoming this equalizer, it has become a bit of a rat race for brands to capture attention of whoever they're trying to capture. And I'm thinking more specifically Gen Z just because that's who I am. But again, the special thing about Gap is they're good at capturing not just Gen Z, but other demographics across the board. And the moral of the story is like, listen to your customer, really observe your customer. The thing about a brand is that you can't think you know better than who you're trying to sell to. You have to trust that who you're trying to sell to has something meaningful to contribute back to you as well. Very excited to continue seeing what Gap does, who's next that they're going to collaborate with. Gap, if you still would like to send me part of that Sandy Liang collection, I'm begging. This is my per episode beg. But that is my take on it. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Bye.